There we are. All right. All right. So this is going to be a talk on guides. It's going to be extended beyond guides into helpers and gatekeepers and anything else that comes up as well. So we're going to be looking at what they are, how they work, what they do from my point of view, and then I'm going to ask Spirit to come and have a chat with you. The plan is to have two guides to come and speak to you, to give you two other points of view on guides and way they are and the way they work, etc. So look out for that later. There is as well some free guided meditations that I have, which I will send to you all those on email. So if you've registered, I'll put the link to that for you. I think there's about 3 or 4 guided meditations for you if you want to try them to help you. They'll come to you on email as well. You just download them and use them. I think they're about 5 to 10 minutes long, something like that, each one. Have a go with them if you want to as well. I'm saying now because I'll probably forget to mention it a bit later. So that's later on. If you are interested in knowing more about guides and helpers, there's lots of other ways we can talk and do that. We can get together. There's other talks which go on as well. And there are talks online on the website you can have a look at too, and on YouTube. So you can have a look at those as well. But I think I'm going to get started. The idea is to present to you my point of view on guides and helpers and what they are. And then, as I said, to let Spirit take over and to do the communication to you. Please ask questions as we go through if you want, if there's anything you particularly want to know or you want to expand something a little bit more, ask away. I think you're all on mute, but you'll need to unmute yourself, obviously, and just ask anything for a bit more.
What is my name? My name says Milada.
Pardon?
My name on Zoom is just Milada. Why does it say that?
Your name is Milada.
Yes, look at that, Brandon.
With my face. This makes no sense.
Oh, cool. Something's happened.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
So I'm going to go ahead and share this screen with you. It's a PowerPoint. It's a lot longer PowerPoint. Sorry, it's taken from a lot longer PowerPoint, one that lasts about, I don't know, 90 minutes or so. So this is aiming to be about 20 minutes, thereabouts. It should give you enough basic information, and then we're going to go a bit deeper into the other chats, all right? All right, okay, let's share this and get started. Where are we? Share screen. All right, you should be able to see all of that. I talk about guides and helpers. I'm sorry it's in this view. I just find for some reason it corrupts if I go into speaker view and doesn't work quite as clearly. So I'm leaving it at this view. Let's get it going. So guides and helpers. It's going to extend, as I said, from guides into helpers and into gatekeepers. So first of all, we're going to talk about guides. Now, we all have guides. Guides are with us from birth, so they tend to be appointed with us at the point of our birth and incarnation. It is as far as I'm led to believe, it is a volunteer role that a guide will volunteer to be with you, and you pick them, etc., and you will work together as a guide for whatever your life circumstances are. So as a consequence, they tend to be with you for the whole of your life, but it is possible for them to change and change in presence and change in personality, which can occur as well. But they tend to be with you for the whole of your lifetime. They're involved in the whole concept of your life, not individual aspects of your life. So the whole concept is in from birth to death, and what you will do to achieve what you're aiming to achieve along the way. There are helpers as well, which may come in for just incidental activities in your life. So if you want to learn to play the trumpet, for example, then you may get a guide that helps you with just that aspect, but they won't help you with any other parts. So that's classified as a helper who's just on specific tasks. And sometimes your guide can be a spokesperson to many other guides. So they may be just the figurehead for, if you want to say, a committee behind them. So a bunch of other spirits which they nominate, I presume, nominate one person to do the talking, and then that person will take care of communication and work with you in a way. You probably find that the more evolved you are, the more spiritually evolved, the more you'll find that there is a big gathering of guides waiting for you. But it may only be that you only know of one or two, but there may be others standing behind them. It is possible for the guides to change, but it's very infrequent. And this is as you change and evolve spiritually. I believe I had a guide change. And I'm talking a guide from a long-term guide around 2007-ish, as I left one part of my life and started another. Left my commercial life and started, well, I'd already started spiritual life at that stage, but it became a full-time activity in 2007. So I believe there was a change in my guides around then. Now, the guides may not necessarily have been with you since birth, but they will have been with you very close to your birth. And as it says here, guides were appointed prior to your birth. And it is possible that they are a relative of yours. It seems to be not so common, but it is very possible. So they can be your grandfather, for example. It's more likely your relatives will become helpers and someone that's interested as opposed to somebody guiding you. But it is very possible that they come and help you with specific activities. So hence a relative tends to be more of a helper level and help you, for example, with mediumship. But it's more common that the guides take on other forms according to your mind and your personality type. We'll get to that in a little while. So let's go down a bit. So most common guides for people, first of all, Native American Indian. By far the most common guide, probably is more than all the others put together. It's an assimilation that we perhaps use and relate to. Often Chinese Oriental guides as well are fairly common. You may have a nurse or a doctor, particularly if you're working in a healing modality, of course. Potentially a scientist. So I do know of one person who has a scientist guide. And that suits a particular industry that person works in as well. Of course, you may have artists, and here I said Egyptians, monks and nuns seem to be fairly common as well. Now, one thing my guys always say to me is this is just an appearance according to the way that the medium or the person would interpret or feel comfortable with. And commonly, if you know of the guide Silver Birch, Silver Birch was presented as an American Indian, but declared that he wasn't actually an American Indian. It was just the way they presented to make the medium and clients, etc., and the work that they were going to do to become more comfortable. So your mind will have a lot of influence on what your guide looks like. I do know of people, again, always wanting bigger and better guides. So some people say that I've got a guide, let's say called Buddha or anything else. This, in part, can be down to the ego of the medium, where the medium wants something a bit more special. And perhaps wants to be a bit more special than the next person. But if you do to claim to have a guide of a particular name or style, be prepared that you may have to prove this. So if you say you've got Buddha, how can you prove that you have Buddha as a guide? Now, you may think that people wouldn't actually declare Buddha as a guide too often, but I do remember I was on a retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh, if you remember him. He was the Zen monk that hasn't long died, actually. And he always used to say that if you are doing walking meditation and you are not feeling comfortable, ask Buddha to walk with you and he will walk with you. And it stuck in my mind. This was probably back in 2006 or 7. It stuck in my mind what he said back then. And I wondered whether I could also call Buddha or anyone else in to come and walk with me or be with me. And how would I know it's that person? I find that if you need to be in regular communications with your guide and for the best possible results, the more that you're in touch with them, the more the communication channel flows between the two of you, the more that the connection is stronger, and also the involvement in your life becomes bigger and more rich. And then much of your life becomes a communication between you and your guide guiding you. After all, they have a very different point of view of your life to you. And I believe that if you can be in more contact with your guide in terms of what you do, how you do it, etc., then you'll find they have bigger influence, and also then your life tends to go along a set path and you do things that you may not know why. So even though I couldn't accept Buddha walking with me in a walking meditation way back then, I think the concept is still correct. Is it Buddha or is it your guide? Is it someone else? Then obviously you need to find out about that for you. I did see a hand up. I think it was Raylene. Raylene, did you have a question? Where we are?
Yeah, sorry, like my screen's playing up. It'll go fuzzy in a second, sorry. Is it possible for a child that is awake to have a, oh, sorry, I'll get rid of that, to have a child guide that grow together?
Yes, child guides tend to come in with people, particularly if they work with either trance or physical mediumship. Seems to be fairly common. Guides may, the child may not actually be a child. It just may be presenting as a child. And also the guide, the child may also be there more as a helper at times as well, if it is a child. So there is one medium that I know of who has a guide who says he is 7 years old, but then says he's not. He's actually a lot older than that, but presents as 7 in a young voice, because the audience that medium will be working with, this is appealing to them. So very common that child guides can be about, but tends to be more around, say, trance and physical mediumship, but not solely. So you get quite a playful nature with a child as a guide. And they may be there just intermittently as well.
Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah. So you may feel those around you too. Let's carry on. Oh, we go. Children as a guide. So they may show themselves as a guide, may have passed as a child, but they are not trapped as a child as well. So they'll carry their evolution on. Don't forget, the child is only the body, not the spirit. So the spirit, as I said, may come back to represent itself as a child to be with you, but doesn't mean that they are a child as such, you know.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Doesn't necessarily mean. So they tend to come with a lot more fun, joy, and laughter. And there we go, attracted to physical and trance mediumship as well. carry on. So the role of guides, their role tends to be mainly for teaching, guidance, inspiration. Plenty of others here, healing, of course. They can help with philosophy, a humor and joy, which would be very much a child-related one as well. Doesn't have to be. They are there to guide you in your role and to work with you. So they keep you on your life purpose and keep you going on your purpose. So this is the direction that you have chosen and the path you have chosen, and they keep you in that path. So as you start to divert off, then you will get inspiration or a bit of a nudge to change your path and to work in other ways. So the messages tend to come quite subtly generally until you are either willing or able to listen to them. If you're in regular communication with your guide, where you are having conversations, then you will find that the natural flow of your life and your direction gets picked, and you work along your path far easier. And you should let them work in the way that they want to work through you, rather than trying to manipulate it in certain ways. You can follow your path, but at the same time, you'll find you'll be hindered or diverted off if that is not on the way that you should be working. So, for example, if you are teaching and you're not ready to teach, you'll find that there are hindrances or problems to your teaching ability, or the clients coming to work with you, etc. So they may hinder your path as well. Let's go on. Meeting your guides. There are many ways that you can do it. Obviously, you can sit with a medium. They can say you have an American Indian guide, for example, but there's very little evidence that can come as proof of that. It may just be validation to what you know. It's possible that you can have spirit portraits done. I remember doing a demonstration at AFC, and by chance, Arthur Finlay Centre, and by chance there was a spirit artist who drew the person that I had pictured. So I got great confirmation from that artist. A very tall man with very long arms, I remember, and the person drew exactly that. Anyway, it gave me confirmation. You can invite your guides to work with you and to be with you, but you'll find that, again, your mind's going to be limiting them. So they'll limit them in terms of demographics. I'll need to have a particular type of guide, etc. And you'll find that would limit you too. The best way is attunement of energies by sitting and blending and feeling the guide come close to you, and in feeling them come close, start to feel the difference in their sensations. So this is about you getting to know them, having the experience of them rather than being told about them. That's by far the best way. And that, of course, means that tuning means a practice of sitting with spirit, and sitting in the power and or meditation will help. Inspirational writing can give you some kind of connection to guides as well, and allow them to come and start influencing your mind. And if you are sitting for transmediumship, this, of course, is part of the process of not just meeting the guides, allowing them to have a stronger and stronger influence on your mind, and therefore onto your body. I want to go down a bit further. Some of the pitfalls of doing this is that you can be limited to a description of your guide. So there were, in a demonstration at a spiritual church a few months ago for me, there was a lady that came up to me at the end and said, I work with a council. Okay, I said, and work with it's one council lower than God. Is it? Okay, what do they tell you and what do they do? And in part, the questioning was about her, have you just done this through your ego, or have you found them and found what they like and what they look like and what they want to do? because I remember this person from months previously, and she said she had an angel as a guide, and then had a archangel as a guide, and then had a group of angels of a guide. And it felt like that she was just trying to get bigger and better according to what her egoic needs were. And as a consequence, then there was no proof or evidence. The vast majority in spirit, of course, are not angels. They are just regular people who've lived regular lives. So it's actually probably more common that you would have just regular people. And so you'd have to question, why is this so big? Why are you claiming this to be an angel? And how do you know, etc.? And where's the bit of proof that comes about for it? As much for, let's say, for the client's point of view, but also from the medium's point of view. Wouldn't you want to know whether is this real or not? Is my ego getting involved here? Is my mind just playing tricks on me to some degree, or making this want to happen? So again, thinking about this can limit your description and the type of guide you work with, and your ego can be in the way. Commonly, guides don't like to give names, but they can. They know that names are important from our side, so we like to use names. So that the name, though, is only perhaps relative to a series of lives, or one life, or even the way that you might want to call them. It doesn't mean that's who they are. So if you have a disembodied spirit, why would they call themselves a certain name? It may be because of a previous life, or just because you like it. So I do have one guide who said, oh, don't worry about a name, just call me Steve. and that's the name that we've used for him. He doesn't claim to be anybody special as such, and he just comes to work with us and works with certain people. Part of your work will be distinguishing between your mind and spirit. Which one is it? Are you using your mind, or is this from something outside of you? This is a very important part of the process. Some people's minds, of course, can be very trapped with what they are saying, what they're saying, and what they need, and may not necessarily have made the connection to spirit. When you've made the connection, you know. And if you are just saying you know, then you may not have. So quite often people haven't spent the time in connecting to spirit from even just like an introductory or basic level of sitting in the power or sitting in meditation and feeling the connection happening. And there's on such a rush to get to, I have a guide, and the guide is something or other, that they have not actually made the connection. So it's very important you spend time on the foundational level, and then you begin to know spirit, rather than have a belief or a faith in spirit, or even an egoic based belief in spirit. So it's that time that's important in your description and knowing of your guide. It's also important to keep your mind open to other possibilities. I know in the healing or trance healing course that we work through, often talk about there that you may have guides within the healing base that may change. So you may have a guide that works, let's say, on let's say the nervous system, another guide that works with skin or eyes, and other possibilities. It seems to be far better to be able to bring an appropriate guide for the appropriate ailment, particularly in healing, as I said. So your guides may open and change just for that client. Of course, that means they're there just for the healing possibility. I always think within mediumship that people can get very limited to mediumship just being one aspect, but there's so much more. I think mediumship just touches the very edge of what spirit is. It's not the whole. whole picture, the whole use, the whole style, or what spirits are capable of. Just mediumship touches one part, and there's more exploration to be done. Again, I would ask for evidence from multiple sources, maybe different mediums, drawings, your own feelings, just for your confirmation. You can seek validation in your physical world, the guide as well. There are techniques for that. And this seek and you will find sounds like a very flippant cliche, but part of this is involved in, part of this phrase is also involved in your communication with your guide, for you to be in communication, to talk to them as frequently as possible and allow them to have access into your life. Let's carry on. I'm just a bit conscious of time. Helpers, the role of the helper tends to be, as I've said, very specific tasks. So maybe just for healing, etc. They tend to be large in number. They can be family members, and they may go once that role has been completed. So they may be with you for short periods of time. Gatekeeper. Now, the role of the gatekeeper got many different names, the gatekeeper. The idea is it's the connection between your physical self and your spiritual self. There are 2 points of view with this. The first one, view one. So there is a communicator that wants to connect with you. If you think of evidential mediumship, the gatekeeper stands in the way and says yes or no, and does the appropriate work to balance energy, vibration, etc., and then allows the communication to come through to the medium. Here, the gatekeeper is seen as a middleman. The other point of view is the communicator goes direct to the medium, but also to the gatekeeper, who just manages and oversees the process, make sure everything's working okay. And here, then, this is a facilitator. My personal view is this is the correct one. Other people will say this, but to me, this makes more sense. And I'll show you why in a diagram in a little while. So the communicator, it works with the gatekeeper first and then allows the communication through to the medium. I think this gatekeeper can be quite, what would I describe it? Quite strict or quite broad or quite thin, meaning that once the regular communications start to happen, the process gets easier and then the communication becomes easier. And it's just a process of this working through with the medium to get everything in order, which is part of your practice development, getting this right to allow this to take place whenever that's due to take place. Now, the communicator could be for evidential mediumship or transmediumship or healing, if you like, but the same process would take place. Let's look at it in another way, a process of connecting. Now, this diagram's part of a far bigger diagram, which also includes psychic ability, and another diagram which includes healing ability. So let's begin down the bottom. So we have a medium down the bottom here, and the medium works very much with their subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is the right side of the brain, and is the brain of imagery. It's also the part of the brain which looks after archetype, imagination, creativity, a whole bunch of other things. And so as a consequence, when the medium starts to work with the subconscious mind, the medium always thinks that what they're doing is making this up. It's purely imagination. So that's the bit when we begin practicing that you tend to deal with. Sometimes the messages come quite strongly within your subconscious mind, and they can be have to be translated. All the messages get put into your subconscious mind, and the conscious mind will actually view and read the subconscious mind. The reason it's that way is because the conscious mind looks after thought and pictures and also communication. So it has to be involved in this process. So the conscious mind reviews the subconscious mind, and then the words come out of the mouth of the medium saying, this is what's occurring. So here we have the higher self, which is also another name for gatekeeper. So the gatekeeper, I hope you like the image, but anyway, the gatekeeper image here. The gatekeeper is actually the very edge of your soul. It's actually still part of your soul, but is on the very edge. It is the first aspect of you which is not physical. And then as a consequence, we get all the messages that start to happen here. Maybe you'll get the message from the client's higher self, a spirit communicator, the client's guides possibly, and other. Maybe you get it from angels or gods or wherever you get the message from. But messages can also come out of a set of knowledge, which I'm calling Akashic records here. Possibly your guides, possibly helpers as well. All are in communication with this higher self, and the higher self allows or does not allow this communication to happen. The higher self is part of the soul, is still part of one aspect of the soul, and would hold within it an understanding of what you want, your direction in life, and take care of the non-physical aspect of you. Soul beyond this works at a deeper level, and souls start to see your life in a far bigger picture and a far broader perspective. So we'll see the whole of your life. Malada, yeah, a question?
Yes, I think this is a good time to ask a question that was written in from Sherry. The question that she asks is, are our guides actually aspects of our higher selves?
In a moment when we get spirit to talk, we'll get their point of view. My opinion is yes, they are, but they are influenced through the mind of the medium about what they look like. So the information is stored within the mind, within memory, and the guide does the communication, and then the mind of the medium associates a form or a personality to that guide. The other thing to think about is I'm actually representing the soul here by all things that are green. I think it depends on your point of view. If you're trapped in a physical world, you are just here. At best, you'll know about your subconscious mind, your imagination. If you start to do spiritual work, you'll start to get to know this level. And that is the very edge of your soul. Within your soul is not just the guides and helpers which come through to help you, who see another aspect of your life, but is also knowledge that you can access. So if you are quite attuned to this level and can open up to this level, then you start to know things beyond what you should know. And I don't mean at a psychic level, I mean know of events or let's say past lives or future can also work there. It's an access and opening up to your, let's say, your soul self or your higher self. I think if you want to go on a far deeper picture and bigger picture, then you probably could say all of this is all one soul. But perhaps that's a bit beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. So I'm just talking about the higher self, the guide, and the connection. Remember, the important part of the process is the information first comes into your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is where you start to see. The subconscious mind thinks in images and feelings, and which are all the different clairs, of course, and sensations. So all the clairs will exist within the subconscious mind, and the conscious mind will be there to access them and to communicate with them. Sometimes your guide may drop an image into your mind, which will be part of an inspiration for you. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should go there. This is that inspiration of taking care of your events or keeping you on track in life. And this is how some messages come to you quite randomly about what you should do. I just know where I should do, what I should do, or where I should go. This is the guide that's influencing you on your path to keep you on your path. And that influence is is because they know what your mission in life is meant to be. Anybody else got any questions about this before I carry on? Is this all nice and clear, I hope? In a picture form, it tends to be a bit more simpler to see. No? All right, let's carry on. I think I've just got one more bit to do in my part. So exercises for you to try. As I said, I do have a few guided meditations for you to try with. Other exercises, you need to practice a process of blending with your guide. If you are very good at feeling energy, you can ask them to blend and then to leave, and then to blend and then to leave. That is part of, I think that's one of the audio files which you can have. And then you would start to feel the difference in the energies. It works with you and then leaves you, and works with you and then leaves you. And it's possible then to ask another to come in. So ask this type of guide to be with you, and then change to another guide for you to start feeling difference in energy and difference in feeling. So if the guide is part of your soul or part of your self, then this is the way the mind is giving form and personality to what is formless. So it makes the guide and the energy feel in a different way. Other ways you could do is write a letter to your guide and then write a question, and then write an answer and see what comes about. I think I've mentioned before, there's somebody I used to work with who used to write a question with her right hand and the answer with her left. And so that she would feel like she's got a different person working with her left hand. She used to find she gets some remarkable answers, not the obvious ones, and it used to freak her out. She ended up writing a book about it. I would look for validation on guides as well to find out how they work and what's your name. Show me your name if you're looking for that validation too. It's very important for you to be with the energy and not the information, particularly when you are practicing and developing. It is the connection to the energy and connection to the feeling of presence that will be important to you. And that will be undisputable when you've found it. But the information you'll get from there to begin with will leave you with a thought process of, is this real or not? So stick with the energy and the feeling and not with the information until you've built up enough confidence and faith in who you are with. And then you will find the expression will become more natural. So I always find that the people who spend longer in their foundational exercises, sitting in the power, meditation, etc., and some of these exercises actually make the better mediums at a later date. And they also have less worry and doubt of, is this real? Am I making this up? Is it true? Etc. So spend as much time in your development as you can and build from there. Transmediumship is then taking that connection onto another level. And this is the transmediumship. As you start to feel the connection of energy, you ask the connection to have a bigger influence on you. So if we go back to the previous diagram, if you're looking at the way transmediumship would work, well, this connection, which initially is kept at a bit of a distance, starts to thin, and the guide starts to stand more commonly over here, because the higher self has started to allow it to come forward. The doubts and fears have started to drop away, and the feeling of this guide, it becomes present. Your biggest block, of course, here is your mind, and particularly logical minds have problems in this process because the logical mind tends to be on the left side of the brain, and they struggle with this subconscious thought. So logical people then can have difficulty within making this connection to higher self, subconscious, and then all of this that's available, because they have trouble getting to this subconscious state. Not that they can't, they just have trained themselves to go one way and not the other. So that for them, spirit then needs to work on a logical basis. And that's certainly possible, but you do miss out on some of this connection that comes about. So they may get an understanding, but not necessarily an experience of spirit. So the mind is the block, the mind is what's in the way, but the mind is what needs to be used as well. So it needs to be just put into order. Hence, also, the higher self is also just needs to know how to work with your mind and also work with all of these aspects to allow both the guide, the helper, or the communicator to come through you. And then as you do, it becomes a far easier process. All right, I think I'm just going to say that's about my end. It is. Is there anybody that has any questions? Because I want to guides come and talk to you on a deeper level about this. Is there any questions for me? Okay, I will stop sharing. There we are. It's interesting that the plan for doing this was to show you different points of view about guides, listen to mine and then listen to other depths so you can understand the different depths, and also to show you why sometimes you will get guides which will have two different opinions. So one say it's left and one say it's right, etc., which is the correct way, which is the right point of view. So you may come across at times guides which will seem contradictory to other guides. And this would be part of the process. And you're going to see why in a minute when we start to look at these two guides that come through. I think I already know who I've got and who's ready to communicate. So I'm just going to disappear for a while and let them talk to you. I'm hoping they're going to agree with me. But maybe not. Right, sip of water. Let's do it. Hey, so there will be a guide change during this. Now, during this process, if you have a question that you would like to ask, please let Melada know that you have a question and ask your question. She'll allow you to open up to ask the question at the appropriate time. All right. And I know Melada has a few questions from people who've sent her messages as well, so they'll come in time. All right, it's just a few minutes for me to go, and you'll feel the personality arrive, and then there'll be a change of personality somewhere during the process. So, all right, I'll see you in a little while. here, the process of understanding about guides is actually quite interesting, I think. I think it's kind of quite understandable when you start to look at the process of death and dying in the spirit life. You see, when you step over from your world to my world, and then you go through your process of getting used to where you are, then you will undertake a life according to what you believe your life to be. So if you're quite attached to certain aspects of your life, you recreate it again within the spirit life. And you recreate the life, and then you live according to them beliefs and understanding. So if you've always wanted a little cottage in a forest somewhere, then that's what you can create and to live with. So there's lots of individuality when you first come to our world, and the individuality means that you will live out more of your dreams and your possibilities, more of your desires, and in living them out then you eventually come to a point where you would like to do more meaningful work. And the meaningful work means that you may volunteer and associate yourself with somebody needing your skill or experience. So that skill and experience then is given to someone else, and it is shared with them. And the sharing means that also will influence the physical life that is being lived by that spirit person. You see, you're just as much in spirit world, or in fact, you're more in spirit world than you are in the physical world. So the inspiration takes place at our level, not at your level. So the inspiration takes place here. So if the soul that's evolving is just part of its early development, then it still seeks and undertakes individuality. So it has experiences for itself about what its needs and desires are. And those desires then means that often people chase experiences for understanding, and the person that's, or the spirit that's evolving and gives itself to the other to learn will share some of the experience and share some of the knowledge that it has. But after a while, that incarnated soul starts to evolve to greater and greater spiritual understanding. And when it understands at a far deeper level, then it connects easier and far better with other spirit beings. It also holds within its memory lots of different lives that have lived before, maybe 100, maybe 1,000, all sorts of lives that lived before. And in that, connecting to that memory then can influence the mind, which influences through the soul to the physical being. And the physical being can feel the connection of more than one soul or spirit as that soul starts to evolve. It takes some time, as you can imagine, for a soul to evolve. It's many thousands of lives that have got to be lived in your world in order to first get a glimpse or an understanding that there is something beyond the physical world. But it's only then that the point of service and connection and love starts to open up into a love for another, service to another, not for my gain, but for their gain, that feeling. And so the soul wants to do work where it helps other people more. And in doing this thins out the connection, the veil between your world and my world. The more spiritual you are, the more you've controlled your mind and your thoughts, the more pure influence of light which will flow into you and through you. So you see, it's your work of development in practice sessions which thins the difficulties, which allows the true flow of communication to take place. And when that's truly thin or even has a hole in it, then the communication from the other side becomes far easier and far more natural. And then guides become apparent, and you may call your influencers your guides, but really they're no more than your spiritual self that's influencing you in your world. You see, you think you've got free will, that you can do whatever you like. Well, to some degree you can, but not strictly, because you'll always do what the spirit wants you to do. The spirit will always have its way and will always direct you into the positions, the places, the experiences, good and bad, that you have to cope with or deal with or evolve through. And as you become sufficiently understanding, sufficiently evolved, then you find greater and greater knowledge will start to flow through you as well. Greater understanding. And then more and more souls tend to get together. As your vibration rises on our side, then you find the attraction to you becomes so strong that you join with other souls and you work together, and there becomes less and less individuality on our side. So this gives you a feeling of multitude of souls or multitude of guides working with you in different aspects of the same being. So there is both individuality and universality all in one go. Yet you would say that they're two different things. How can you be individual and unified and joined together with the Great Spirit all at the same time? How can you do that? How can you be one and be many? Don't seem logical, does it, when you first look at it? But the truth is, your physical self, your limited mind, only thinks that things should be left all right. In spirit world, with understanding, not at the beginning bit, but with understanding, there is both left and right. There is both physical and non-physical. There is both love and hate, if you want to say it. Both aspects you can witness. But of course, this is all about the clarifying and clarity of your mind and the evolution of your spiritual self to realize not only are you non-physical, but you have many other layers above that. We could say within that, if you want to say that, or around you, if you want to say that as well. So you ain't just individual, you're also part of a group. You ain't just physical, you are also non-physical. And you're not just non-physical in one level, you're non-physical in other levels as well. Coming to spirit world is not the end of your journey. This is just the kind of the beginning of your journey, really. And you evolve through it through understanding, connection, and also with the love of helping another person. So we've got another point of view for you, one that's a little bit deeper, one that you'll find that's going to give you a different, well, hopefully it won't fry your brain too much. But it'll give you another point of view that there is actually a third person, third spirit that's hanging around, but we'll just see how we go for time, all right, and see where we go. Now I've done my bit. I've explained it a little bit, I hope, but I'm gonna step or two aside and allow the other come through at a far bigger level as well. All right then. I'll see you later. Ta-ra. So when you walk up a mountain, when you start at ground level, you cannot see the sky. But as you begin your path up that mountain, you may see perhaps the tops of trees. And when you walk further up the mountain, you may see other mountains and valleys and more trees. Maybe you'll see a river in the distance or the ocean. You see, your viewpoint and your opinion of the landscape is very much determined by where you stand. If you stand within the physical self, then of course you see many different bodies. If you stand in the aspect of mind, you may get a perception of many different souls. But as you go further both in your understanding and also your viewpoint, then you will see the majesty of all that lies there. That there is in fact not just many trees, but there is one forest. Not just one forest, but one country. Maybe then there's one planet. You see, your viewpoint determines your opinion. So the interesting topic of what is a guide, I would like to tell in terms of a story. Well, an analogy, forgive me. And it's an analogy that I've used before. In that case, before, I used it to explain dreams and visions. But now I use it to explain guides, also different layers or vibrations or realms, and perhaps anything else that you would associate the speech with. So if you've heard this story before, I do apologize, but it fits perfectly within this requirement of understanding. So if you imagine that you have, let us say, 7 tissues, all hanging from a clothesline, and you would shine a light or a torch through one tissue which carries on through another, through another, through another. So the light next to, let us say, tissue number 7 is quite strong. But as it goes through each successive layer, then that light becomes perhaps a little dull. And when it becomes or goes through tissue number 1, it arrives at, let's say, ground zero, if that's a suitable term. Far less intense than when it started, yet it is still the same light. And at this level, there is rather a subdued light, and potentially you could say a little bit of darkness, as the light cannot reach every corner. So you have like layers of a cake, if you would like, one stacked upon another. So as somebody begins their spiritual journey, their spirituality is one of practice and commitment and dedication, and they begin the process of thinning out or making a hole in the tissue. And that tissue is mind, the limiting aspect of your mind. The mind gives you fear, doubt, worry, confusion, right? All the blocks that you could ever think of, and creates the world below it. But with your spiritual practice, then the hole in that veil starts to widen. And in widening, then of course it allows greater light from the layer above. Not just greater light, but also greater love. And also more knowledge. So light, love, and knowledge start to flow easier through the veil. Light, love, and knowledge, if you would like perhaps a deeper understanding, is Satchitananda. To then, the spiritual being feels a greater connection to the light that is above. And that light, that knowledge, that love, that being influences the physical world. But it doesn't stop there. There is another veil. And that veil also can begin to thin. As long as that level has undertaken its own spiritual work, then it would thin that layer and allow light, love, and knowledge from the layer above. So this gives the impression of a separate physical entity or guide that is communicating with the physical person. Now, in 99% of those practicing and developing would open the one layer and allow the communication to flow through the information. A guide is on the next level above. Occasionally, but not very commonly, there are conjoining holes in veils, in which case the guide could be perceived from a couple of layers above. Then the level of knowledge and understanding becomes a lot deeper. The viewpoint becomes broader. The understanding becomes quite magnificent. And on very rare occasions, you have beings, physical beings, which access and allow knowledge for higher realms to flow through. So then you get what you would call saints or sages. And on even rare occasions, you may have ones which are very close to the connection of the Supreme, And that information would flow from that level through all the subsequent layers into the physical self. And this is how you would gain both Jesus and Christ, Buddha and Buddha-heart. The physical self is still a human and will still die. But the depth of knowledge is not from one level above or two or three, but multiple. So, of course, you lose the word guide at that stage. And this is the phrase that where you and your Father are one. So your viewpoint in life would be that on an individual level, you are many. You are 8 billion or so humans, plus all the other entities. The physical self sees all individual bodies. The spiritual self would see one layer above and gain knowledge from one layer above the physical, which is what was demonstrated in the previous demonstration. Their viewpoint up the mountain would be limited according to where they are. But the flow of information, the spiritual evolvement is not just for one level, but for all. And you exist on all of those levels, all at the same time. You are the light that shines from the top to the bottom. But at the bottom, you are rather limited. At the top, you are unlimited. So you see, it is your mind that you work with. It is your mind that seeks both clarity and, well, understanding to begin with. It is the opening up, the letting go, the joining together as was hinted at, which allows, in its first point, the flow of knowledge, light, and love. So how can you do this work? It might sound all very attractive to you. Because you see, within your physical world, all of life that you have, all the experiences, your trials, your tribulations, your joys, and your sadness, they are all given to you by the next level above as a come home to me, let us be one. So the experiences are there for your awakening, for your realization, for your understanding of your non-physical self. And as that non-physical self evolves from individuality to universality, then there is the truth of existence that flows through it all. So your work is one of calming the mind to allow spirit to reveal itself to you. It is not a chasing of your spiritual form. It's not a go read a book, look under a rock. Rather, it is an opening. You add layers of complexity and difficulty, and you add layers of trouble, layers of fear and doubt and worry, rather than taking them away. So indeed, it is true that guide, to begin with, looks separate. But it's also true that guide is none other than yourself. And it is also true that individual, soul, guide if you want, guru, master, God, are all one, because they are all aspects of the light that shines. So if you have trouble in making your connection or getting a sufficient connection, it is not that it is not there. Rather, it is what have you put in the way? The busy mind, the busy life, the looking out rather than the looking in, the rule book when there should be no rules. The physical self rather than the spiritual self. Now you sit in this talk, this communication today, not because you are beginning your process, but because you have been called. You've been called not by your physical self, have you? It's may sound appealing on paper that your physical self would apply. But that is such inconsequential, narrow viewpoint. You've been called here today for whichever level or evolution you are at, for you to let go a little more. If for just 1 minute now, just for 1 minute, if you were to practice letting go of all that I have been told I am, with a little skill and practice, it reveals the light and truth that is underneath. It is the removal of the block, not the finding of spirit. Because you are already there. You are already that light. You are just limiting the expression by your soul's evolution. Your journey will take as long as it will. Your truth will become apparent to you as you are able to perceive. But let me tell you this. Your journey along your path is assured. The light that you are is whole and complete. Never needs anything else. And you are already that. So you are playing the game of level 1. Yet you already exist on, well, every level. You can stop playing that game whenever you like. And when your physical body falls away, you will let go of all the things that you are not to reveal all that you are. Now, I believe we may have a question or two. Would that be correct? May I be of assistance?
Before we go on, does anyone have any questions? I believe that Raylene's question was answered in what you talked about, Ignatius. Does anyone else have a question that they would like to ask? Well, I have a question here that was submitted. Can a gatekeeper also play the role of a spirit guide, and can that gatekeeper come through in trance?
Again, it depends on your viewpoint, doesn't it? If you have the viewpoint that I portrayed or I talk about, then you can see that it is all possible and it is all part of one thing anyway. So the gatekeeper being the initial point of your soul, it is the opening of the veil, the one who takes care of that part of the veil, can certainly be an inspiration to the mind of the person. But this will become very limited to the person, as they will just give them a little bit more than what they know. They want information at a higher level, in which case it becomes dissatisfactory after a short period of time. So you find gatekeepers are generally the first ones to connect to a medium, and maybe the first ones to speak through the medium. But not long afterwards, they would change and change into the true flow of information, the knowledge that is available and is of use in the expression to those listening to the words. So the answer is both yes and no, my dear. I trust that helps.
Yes, thank you, Ignatius.
Is there another question?
Anyone else listening or watching have a question before I ask something that was written down?
I'll ask a question. This is Nicole.
Nicole.
Yes. So I feel like I've had strong contact with my guides for most of my adult life, but a couple years ago I had an experience. I was in it, going through some hard things, and I had kind of communication with my guides throughout this day. It was a long communication, maybe for 8 hours, where they were talking with me. And at the very end, the guide that was speaking to me said, you know, I'm not separate from you. I'm not outside of yourself. This is all coming from you. But after that experience of realizing that my guide was actually myself, my higher self, I've had difficulty communicating since. And I'm just wondering, is that because I have, you know, my self-image is blocking me now that I know that it's myself and not something separate from me that's making it more difficult? That's what I'm feeling it is. Thank you.
First of all, then you must assume there's an assumption in some people's questions in this regard that the self is less than the guide, less than the word guide. If it's just myself talking, then it is less special than a separate guide. But if you follow my analogy, my story, you can see that it is all just the self. In fact, all of existence is one self, not many selves. So the communication through to you was the guidance you required at the time of your trouble and your difficulty. And this came as an inspiration to you as you access both knowledge and comfort. If you remember, I said you would access light, knowledge, and love. So in your time of need, then your guide, if you would like, provided, yourself provided for your need. Now, your question then is, why have I, or why has it stopped? In essence, you are still that level of knowledge and love and light. That has not changed. But what can change is how much of a block people put into the whole of the veil. So you cannot stop being spirit, but you can pretend not to be spirit. The difference is how much of a block you put to the hole in the veil. Now, the blocks for many people can be, let us say in the beginning, would be fear and doubt as they begin their work. After a period of time, then there is desire that can get in the way, as, let's say, the physical world desires much more of the spiritual world, and the desire belongs to mind, and in desiring, they thicken the mind. Thickening the mind reduces the whole. Now also, the physical person may have attachments or seek pleasure or try to avoid pains, etc. within the physical world, and then desires, attachments, avoidances are other aspects that a more evolved spiritual being will put in the way. So you see, it is impossible for you not to be connected. It's impossible for you not to be connected to yourself. But it is possible for you to put issues or problems in the way. And the desire and the need for that communication is also a block. So the advice would be to stop chasing and start allowing. The advice would be to reaffirm practices of meditation, sitting in the power for the appropriate people. Other people would find the following of knowledge would be satisfactory to help broaden the whole. Others would be able to follow the practice of love. So loving all, loving many, loving God or spirit or deity, if you want. So hence, loving practices would be useful. And a third practice would be the practice now of being aware. So, if you think of those three practices, they are none other than love, light, and knowledge. So practice love, light, and knowledge, whichever is the right way for you. Practice, if you prefer, meditation and also sitting in the power or mindful. Those practices are thinning the veil, and the other three are using the expression beyond the veil to bring it forward. Let me assure you, Nicole, and please listen carefully. Let me assure you, you have not lost anything. It's just a little bit of dust that needs to be dusted away, and the flow and connection will happen again. And as I read into your energy and your connection, I tell you now that the path of love is your path. Find a practice of love. And you'll find your truth will evolve. And your understanding and connection will be put back together. Do you understand, my dear?
Yes, thank you very much.
So we have time for one more question.
Ignatius, I don't honestly know how long the medium wanted to go today, so it's about 1/2 past the hour. Do we have time?
We do, my dear. Let's go for one more question.
Okay.
How's
Do
yours?
we have a question from Tracy.
Ah,
Hi, Ignatius.
good evening, my dear. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And it's always a pleasure to hear from you.
It's a pleasure to hear from you as well.
You may have already answered this with the last question, and it's kind of on the same idea. Before the last person asked this question, my question was going to be, I'm the type of person that needs illustration. I need to know what to do to get to the next level. And I've been doing my meditation, and it just dawned on me, is it possible to meditate and connect with, not have to connect with my guides and my and the keeper and just knowing that we're all one, and I could just meditate and be, not have any expectation, but connect with my higher self, since we're all one and we're already united as one. Would that be something, for lack of, my physical being human, to ramp up and maybe have more happen for me?
What a wonderful question. You see, when you chase guide or entity, if you want, you are in fact putting a defined form around the non-physical form, aren't you? You're creating a form called whatever the name is, and a look around whatever way you want the guide to look. So you are limiting the unlimited. So the word guide actually becomes quite a hindrance rather than the truth of this level of understanding. So if you were to sit in your meditation and you were just to connect with, allow, to be with, to fall into either light or love or knowledge, I assure you nothing else will be required. And it is that light, love, and knowledge which flows from top to bottom. It is then the expectation of the physical self which says, then, well, let's define this. Let's put it in a structure, an order, a form. Let's put it together in a way that it is applicable to the physical world. So you see, I have myself personally, I have lived many lives in your world. Would I want to be defined by any one of them? Well, the truth would be no. It is like saying you want to be defined by who you were when you were 5 years old. So I do not want to be defined by a name or anything else, but just by a being. I am a presence. I am the light. I am the light that comes into your dreams. So take away the need for it has to be a certain way, a certain style, a certain look. Very useful, but very immature, I suppose, in terms of spiritual development. but useful only in the physical world at level of physical world. Knowledge does not have a structure. Love is not limited. Light is all there is. So by trying to put a box within the light is rather pointless, because the light is within and without and everywhere else. So as you sit in your meditation and you call the light towards you, it may come in light and love or knowledge or all of the above, but it does not avoid you. So this is why the physical world should have communication with the non-physical world, and you should ask, if you would like, your guide, yourself, ask your light to come into your life and to be with you in the light. Nothing else is required, and nothing else will do it stronger than calling the name of God. Because you do not call God from level 1 to level 2, or from level 1 to level 4. You call God. And if it is done with an open heart, with love in your being, maybe with tears in your eye, I guarantee that is 100%, then God will come to you. And he comes to you. You don't go looking, you go allowing. But you know all about this to some degree in the groups that we work together in. So sitting in light, love, and allowing knowledge is the path. Satchitananda. God bless you, my dear.
God bless you, Ignatius. Thank you.
You understand, don't you?
Yes.
Well, my time is done. I bid you all well, and let your light be your guide. God bless you.
Thank you, Ignatius.
I never know what to say. I know it worked, but hope it was clear. Did they keep on topic? Were we on topic of? Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah. Beautiful. It was wonderful.
Good. I'm glad it was. All right, everybody, we're about at an end. Again, the idea, hopefully you can see that there are should have been 3 levels of understanding you had. What I perceive and what two spirit communicators perceive. Understanding from a different point of view, different pictures. So this is why sometimes you'll get a different answer from different levels or different people. And you should work with the level that's appropriate to you. There's no point working at a high level if you're not there yet, and no point working with a low level if you're beyond it. You've got to find the right level for you and work with your understanding. All right. Has anybody got any questions for me? Otherwise, I am going to close up. Oh, don't forget, I will send you emails with links. If you want to come to Spirit Talk, that begins this weekend or Monday in Australia, Sunday night in the US. If you come into the courses next week, see you there too. Is there any other questions for me? Nope. Nobody. Okay, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Nice bit of time. Makes me feel lovely. And oh, lovely. Thank you. Yeah. Makes me feel lovely too. All right, everybody.
Thank you, Mark.
No worries. Thank you.